Okay, so we are learning a new concept. We are learning about the percent equation. We remembered the sentence, A percent of B is C, to help us remember the parts. Okay, A is always the percent of a number, and it needs to be written as a decimal. So I'll show you that when we solve for A. B is the original or the whole amount, when you know what the whole part, and then C would be the part of it. Okay, so for instance, when you're trying to find the part, the C, that's the easiest one. We start by, just like it says here, must be written as a decimal. So first thing we're going to do is convert this 25% to a decimal. And how we do that is we do 25 divided by 100. And so the decimal would be 0.25 or 25 hundredths. So a lot of you don't need to show this step, but if it helps you, do it. So then we write our equation. We take our decimal and put it in place of A. Anytime you have a decimal, you put it first. Change what I just said. Anytime you have a percent, percents go here. So A percent. So I'm going to replace the A with 25 hundredths times B is my whole. 60 is my whole. And we're trying to find the part. We're trying to find C. So it's important that we start with the equation. So we're learning pre-algebra at the same time as percents. Equations have an equal sign and a variable. Okay, so we have to write the equation out like that. Finding the part's the easiest equation to solve because we just multiply the two parts together, and that's what C equals. So I use my calculator. 0.25 times 60 gives me, where's my calculator? 0.25 times 60 is 15. There we go. Okay, so that's how you find the part. The second component in this is finding the whole amount. Okay, finding the whole is B. So when we have an unknown, we're trying to find B, we still start by converting our decimal to a percent. So we're going to start, converting our percent to a decimal. All right. So 5 divided by 100 equals 5 hundredths, 0.05. Okay, so our equation is going to be the same as last time. Well, not quite. The B is what's missing this time. So we start with our percent as a decimal, and we multiply that by our unknown, which is B this time, because we're trying to find the whole, equals, remember, is an equal sign in math. Okay, the multiply sign is of, the equal sign is. Okay, so we're trying to find 5% of some unknown value, and it says is 8. Okay, so that's our equation. To solve it this time, we can't just multiply this side because you can't just multiply 0.5 times B. So instead, what we do is opposite operations. We divide. So whatever's right here, whatever number is on this side of your equal sign, we divide both sides by that number. So here's how you show it. Okay, so we draw a line. Divide this whole side by 0.05. Divide this side by 0.05. What that does is 5 hundredths divided by 5 hundredths is 1. If we divide anything by itself, we get 1. So we have 1B. That's all we have there. And basically, we just solve for B on that side. Then we go over here. 8 divided by 0.05 is 160. Okay, so then we can always check it and figure out if 0.05 times 160 equals 8, and it does. So we just found that 8 is 5% of 160. The last one is the hardest, I think, and that would be finding the percent. Okay, so the equation's easy to set up because it says right there in the front, we're missing the percent, we're missing A. Okay, so we have A times something equals something. We just have to figure out what's the B, what's the C. Okay, so the B is the original or the whole. And a lot of times you see the word of before it. What percent of 54, we put that in place of B, is 18? What percent of 54 is 18? Then we solved just like last time. Okay, so this one we divided by 5/100 because that's what's on the side with the variable. Same thing here. The 54 is on the side with the variable, and we want to divide both sides by 54. What that does is 54 divided by 54 is 1. So we've got A times 1, which is just A. Then we go over here. 18 divided by 54 is actually a decimal. You're going to get 0.333. Okay? So here's why this operation is a little bit harder, because when we're done, we've got to make sure a percent, this is always our percent. Right now it's a decimal. To make it a percent, we go do the opposite of what we did in the beginning. In the beginning, for the first two problems, remember we divided by 100 to make it a decimal. When we start with the decimal, we multiply by 100 to make it a percent again. So our percent is 33.3%. And we typically round all of our percents or our answers in this unit to the nearest tenth, which is one decimal place after the decimal.